and welcome to Writer to Writer. My name is Kat Filer, and I'm also known as KJ Filer, author of Shadowrunner. My guest today is Patrice Fitzgerald, former intellectual property attorney who has been an indie writer since Independence Day 2011. Her books include Karma of the Silo, which may sound familiar to you for reasons that we will discuss. It is a sci-fi novel set in Hugh Howey's world of Wool, which is enjoying a renaissance with the tremendous success of Apple TV's Silo series. Patrice has also written a space opera trilogy called Starship Nameless with co-author Jack Lyster, a fast, fun romp that features a quirky band of space pirates, and a second trilogy is on the way. Patrice, I'm so glad you joined me. Thank you for making the time. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and thank you so much for having me. This is fun. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm so happy to talk to you, like not in person, but sort of in person. So this is great. We've known each other for a long time, but I don't believe I've ever had a conversation with you like this. So,
that's right. We've had a little bit of back and forth and DMs, and email, but that's about it. Yes.
Yeah. So listeners almost certainly are familiar with you. And with Hugh Howey, but some of your fellow authors from that universe. But just to catch everyone up to speed, would you tell us a little bit about that? And also, please show us Karma of the Silo and talk about that.
Well, that's excellent. We love that. An author loves to have a chance to show their book. And especially, isn't this a beautiful cover?
That is a gorgeous cover.
This is Karma of the Silo. And this cover was made by Mike Tabor. Now, am I back in the day when we did these Zoom things, our things would be backwards, but it's right side.
It's showing up correctly. I flipped the screen because if I held up a book, it would be like that. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So anyway, this is a book that I wrote almost 10 years ago now. Actually, I wrote it in parts inspired by Hugh Howey, who was then a mild-mannered bookseller who had dreams of, he'd already done some sailing, but he had dreams of sailing around the world. And his little short story, Wool, which he put out in the world with no PR, actually exploded. And then he wrote more, and it's very confusing because of the short story, which I think you can still get. I'm not sure you can, I have copies of it, but he then did 4 more parts and it became Wool, the book. Nothing confusing about that. And then he wrote a second book called Shift, which is a prequel.
Oh, yeah.
And then he wrote Dust, which is the ender. And in the meantime, he sold many, many e-copies, and he eventually made a print deal. He was one of the first, maybe 2 people to make print exclusive deals. And then it became not only a US bestseller, but a bestseller around the world. And back in the day, this would have been 2013, maybe 2014. Who's the big, Ridley Scott was going to make it into a movie. So there were a couple of attempts at movies. I'm sure there were some screenplays written. Here I'm giving all of this PR time to Hugh, but he deserves it. So he's such a wonderful guy. And eventually it was bought for a not that well-known TV streaming service, Apple TV Plus, and finally got made, the pandemic, and they had to build an amazing set outside of London. And it has, in the last, let's see, we're tomorrow, I think, or the next day is the 10th and final episode of the first season. And they are the biggest streaming series right now, #1. Yeah. And maybe that's just for Apple. I don't know if it's true for all streaming series.
I don't know, but it's huge. And I also saw where Hugh posted that Stephen King liked it.
Yes, I saw that tweet, and I sent it to him saying, "Did you see this?" And of course,
you sent it.
20 other people had sent it to him first, but he was pleased. So that's the book is now huge again. It never really died down, but that is his book, his trilogy, and he was kind enough and very unusual to allow others to write in his world. A lot of people do that or they wink at it, but he said, go ahead and sell it and make money on it. And a few of us did, first a trickle and then a whole bunch. And I looked at it at one point. I don't want to say how much that book has made me, but it's quite a lot. And then it sort of died down and now it's getting popular again. So I'm very thrilled at that. I finally am going to put it in print, which I neglected to do because it was just, first mine was in 5 parts and then I put it all together into the ebook, but I had never put it in print except that proof copy that I just showed you. And now I'm going to finalize that. So that'll be available in print as well. And I hope to do an audiobook. So it's very exciting to, first of all, to have a book that people enjoy and that sells well, and then to have it kind of come back to life a decade later is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. And I know he's living the dream, but honestly, some of us are living the dream sort of alongside,
Absolutely.
I personally, because of Sam Peralta's involvement with some authors, including Hugh Howey, that's exactly why I started writing. Peter Codron and a bunch of, and actually talked to you at one point and you're like, do it, write a book. So yes. I did. Here we are.
Samuel Peralta is another one of these visionary people. I mean, he has an amazing resume in physics, et cetera, and starting companies, and he's just what a brain and what a creative person. And of course now he's sending a lot of books and art and music to the moon. That keeps getting pushed back, but there's this little collection of, not little, pretty huge collection of stuff that he is sending up on one of these microchips, right? So that when the aliens find it, they'll be able to say, oh, that civilization that used to be on Earth. That's kind of grim. All right, maybe we'll be in silos by then, right?
But he started putting film and art and other things on it too, so I think that's really great. I know that my story ended up in, I think, Legacy Fleet was my, and I was just talking to Sam about this, and I said, do you realize that was my first byline, and it's going to the moon? That's just awesome.
I didn't realize that. Okay, so you did a short story in Legacy Fleet, and that was that was in Kindle Worlds, wasn't it?
Yeah, and before that disappeared, but yes, it was. And
right.
not a story that I would have thought would have been, the history making one in my group. So that was really funny. So yeah,
it is interesting how we get these little starts, and it seems like, oh, all right, so now I'm launched. So now I can write. I mean, we always could write, but sometimes it takes something like that an invitation from somebody.
Well, and I want to comment about this. You and Susan K. Quinn and Sam Peralta and Hugh Howey and Peter Codron and just a bunch of people have been very, very good at sort of sharing the love. It's not a publishing tradition, but in the indie community, it is.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's something that makes it stand out. Giving other people the encouragement and sometimes a hand up in terms of, boosting their story. I have a quote that I still put on that Karma of the Silo that says, what did Hugh say? I almost have it memorized. Patrice, hey, Patrice, I love this story. You have my complete permission, or something like that. I could look at the book, but I mean, that's a rare person who shares the joy and the encouragement and lets other people enjoy something that he's created. So, but look how it's done for him, because people, he has these huge fans, not just the writers, but the readers of the other writers. It's a whole little community that he has helped create. And his helping people goes back to Kindle boards. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
And just encouraging people. He's that kind of a person, which is wonderful to see. Very exciting.
Yeah. I wouldn't have even thought to submit to an anthology had it not been for being a reader of everyone in this community, and then finding everybody on social media and saying, oh my God, they're just nice people. Maybe they wouldn't say, you're horrible, let's go away. So you guys were talking to me already, so that was fine. So.
Yeah. And I mean, not that anybody is horrible, because the whole idea is we're each unique, and we tell the stories the way they come out of us. And so that's got to be, I mean, sometimes you need to learn pacing or perhaps even grammar for some people, but mostly it's about sharing yourself. And so why wouldn't other writers love and encourage that?
Exactly. And I also think that the anthologies are brilliant, because you've got people of whatever, they're a little bit, well, they're more well known. And then you have people starting out and everybody's in the same pool and you get noticed, or at least somebody reads your story because of where you are. And it's such a generous thing to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, I had, well, I don't know if you've mentioned them yet, but of course I put out the Beyond the Stars anthologies, and that I now have 8 of them out there, and that has been a wonderful experience for me, because just as you described, there are some people that are already bestsellers and people know their names, and then there are some brand new people that come in with a story and it knocks my socks off, and I say, okay, I've got to find a place to put this in there. And that's how I found, see, it's like I planned this, but I didn't. That's the segue to my co-writer, the story of meeting my co-writer, Jack Lyster from Australia, whom, as I tell people, I have never met, but I hope to someday.
Oh, gosh.
And
yeah.
He submitted a story to, look, I'm going to hold it up. I got another
I was
book.
going to ask you if you would hold up the book, if you have
All
it.
right. So this is the first book in the
I love that
Nameless
one
series. Well, this is actually a hardcover, which I did just for fun. And I need to send this to Jack, but do you know it costs $100 to send a hardcover to Australia?
I do know that because Peter Codron apologized for not being able to sign a book for me.
Right. The paperbacks might be cheaper, but probably not much more.
No.
So anyway, me and Jack Lyster, and this is the one that's about the pirates in space, which is such a fun one. But he had submitted a short story to my Beyond the Stars short story space opera anthology series, and it was so great. And I was like, who is this guy? But I didn't love the ending. I thought that he told a wonderful story, and he kind of, he was too timid about the ending, and he kind of so I wrote him back after I read it, and I said, and I hardly ever do this. I usually take a story or not. I mean, there might be some editing, but there's not usually developmental work on it because it's, I get too many submissions. So I wrote back to him and I said, it's great, but would you consider making the ending more positive? So he wrote me back like within an hour. I don't know if you could stay up
sitting
all night.
There waiting.
Yeah. And he said, yeah, sure. And he had a different story. It like had a different ending. And I was like, oh, this is wonderful. So I take that one, and I actually hadn't even read it. And then he sent yet another one, and I'm like, stop. You've already sent me. I liked the second one. The third one's good, but the second one's better. Stop rewriting it. Because I hadn't even gotten around to reading it by then. And or I guess I read it, but I hadn't gotten back to him. He's a writing machine, I tell you. He's over in Australia doing sort of generally IT work, and but he's a trained writer. He went to school to become a novelist, and he just writes like the Dickens. So we already have another trilogy all set. We just have to finish with the editing and the formatting and all of that stuff. So
I'm excited about that. And you have the best covers. Do you have did you have another?
Beyond the Stars?
Yeah.
I do. I happen to. In fact, I picked out, of the 8, I picked out my favorites. So this one is Beyond the Stars.
I love that.
Infinite Expanse. Isn't that a cool one? Well, I should give credit. Julie Dillon is the artist. She has done all of mine. And she has, in fact, won not 1, not 2, but 3 Hugo Awards.
Oh, wow.
And I think they're for these covers in particular. That's why she was nominated. So I have to give some credit to, let's see who's in this one. Can I read it? David Bruns and Ethan Freckleton and Cindy Hung and G.S. Jensen. A lot of people know her. And Jack. This is the first one that Jack Lyster was in. Yes, Nema Wollenfang. Lots of people we know. And here's another one because it's so beautiful. This is my most recent one.
Oh,
isn't that gorgeous? This is Across the Universe. I should have put numbers on them because it gets a little confusing, but I didn't want them to be in any order. So people would be like, oh, I haven't read number 2. It's like, read them all. Just start anywhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, and this has wonderful people in it, including Jack and Nadia Duke and Thomas Farmer. And then finally, this is not the most recent, but it's one of my favorite covers. Isn't that gorgeous?
That's one of my favorite covers of all of them.
This is Best of Beyond the Stars. And this has Susan K. Quinn and Michael Anderle and me,
Okay.
Jennifer Painter Wells, and Samuel Peralta is in here too. But I have to show you something else. Hang on, I'm leaning off the screen for a
Okay.
minute. This is my Kindle, and see, I liked this cover so much. I had my Kindle made with that. All right, that's enough plugging.
That's
I mean,
great.
I guess
I'm going to plug something too then. Okay. I don't know if you can
okay.
see this, if the camera will pick it up. Can you see what that is?
Yes.
Okay.
That's Shadowrunner.
It's a pop socket though. This is my daughter got this for me. And it's
wow.
also got all my credit cards in it.
See, this is
just so cool.
what my daughter does. She doesn't need to do anything. She just goes with her phone and it's got everything in it. And I'm like, where did purses go? Well, I guess, it's an old-fashioned thing now, but that's great. I'll have to find out where you got that, because that would be a cool thing to have.
I'll send you where I got it. She was trying to get me to use a pop socket because she's worried about my hands and stuff. And I'm getting old, I guess. I don't know. And then she says, why are you carrying a purse? And I said, well, I know I'm using Venmo, but you can't use it in Target. And she says, but you could, and she showed me hers. And I said, well, I want one of those. And next thing I know, here it comes with my book cover on it.
Well, and by the way, that's a gorgeous book cover. I just looked at it the other day. It's really, who's your artist?
David King. But he works for the publisher. But I did interview my publisher, Reagan Rohde, on here, and he said that David came from a gaming background.
Okay.
So that would make sense at the graphic arts and stuff. I'm impressed with the difference, and because he covers different genre, and he does all of the covers, and they're pretty different. So yeah.
So you are traditionally published?
It's a small publishing house. Yes, technically it's traditional, and with Black Rose, and they are very. They don't require an agent. I had an agent twice, and all they did was put my book on a shelf and make me promises. I'm not saying that agents are all bad. I just didn't run into some of the good ones. And then I finally, I know some other friends in the Wild Women podcast, and they told me about Black Rose and that I didn't need an agent. So I sent it, and I didn't think anything would happen. And the next thing I know, I got a request, and I thought, well, it's just a request. I'm not gonna
right.
With it. So, but I hear that Sam may be resurrecting the DIC trilogy, or I'm sorry, anthology. And so if that's the case, he's asked who wants to still have their thing and their story in it. And I asked Reagan about it, and he said, yeah, go. And I thought, I don't know if you understand. It's partial book. Okay. So what's the short story that led to the book? But he says he's okay with it. So we'll see what happens.
So I knew he was kind of getting back into this in a small way, because he just released Halfway Home, right? Which is the anthology of short stories based on Hugh Howey's.
So you're talking about Sam now?
Yes, I'm sorry. Who were you talking about?
He was talking about my publisher, but no, he's. I'm going to be interviewing Sam too. But yeah, he's Halfway Home. It came out and it hit #1 hot seller or something on Amazon, and #1
new release.
Yeah, and something else too. So, and he's still in the #1 category. So, yeah. I mean,
well, I was confused because I thought you said Sam. So you were talking about your publisher.
Yeah, my publisher is Reagan Rohde at Black Rose. So yeah.
And so what is it that they are getting into again?
So, well, no, he was an author, and he started a publishing house. So you were asking if I was traditionally published. Technically, yes, it's a very small publishing house. They only do, I think, 150 titles a year or something, which is another reason I was absolutely certain that nothing was going to happen for me. But apparently, yeah. And then his artist did my cover. So
right. I must have misunderstood you there, but I have a publishing house too, but I mean, it's tiny.
I wanted to ask about that. You do have a company, and you're producing Beyond the Stars through that and other things, right?
Well, Beyond the Stars is, yes, I give the overall publishing company is E Fitzgerald Publishing, LLC, actually, and it's not a great name. If I had it to do over again, back in the day, a little e meant electronic, but now, that's of course. So, but I do little subsets of what I call presses, individual presses. So the Beyond the Stars ones come out under Astral. Is it Astral Books? Astral Press? You'd think I would know. but I don't know. So I'm not sure I can even find it in here. And and then I have other authors that are under the E. Fitzgerald publishing umbrella. And there's really only 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, very small. But they range from cozy mysteries to time travel romance to there's one set of books that's a little bit sexy, but sexy in a Regency sort of way.
Okay.
So,
a little of everything.
Yes. So it's been great fun, and it even makes some money. So that's good too.
Oh, that's always nice. Also, I wanted to ask you, your first published book was Running. It was a political thriller about 2 women vying for the presidency of the United States, and how timely. Not then, but now.
Right. Well, I actually thought, this goes way, way back. I thought of the central conflict back when Clinton, that is Bill Clinton, was in the White House. And it has something to do with a sexual scandal. And but I decided, I was thinking about whether if a woman were in that position, she would be forgiven, or at least she would survive in office. And so that led to the story. And it was not the very first book I've written. I think there's one before that didn't have any plot or conflict, but I can say I wrote a book before. So this was really my second book. And but it took a long time. I almost had it traditionally published when I submitted it to one woman who was a new agent with a big, long established agency, and she loved it. She adored it. And then she talked to a colleague who said, well, it's a little bit controversial because it has some racial conflicts in it. And this, as I said, this was a long time ago. So she decided not to publish it. And I then published it on my own. Back in probably 2009, 2010, when self-publishing was brand new, people said to me, why don't you publish it yourself? And I said, oh, well, that's, this was the line at the time. Real publishers won't touch you if you do that. And nobody makes any money on that. And it's just tacky. So I didn't do it. And I didn't do it in 2010. And then finally in 2011, I did publish it. And it actually sounds like a pun on running. It had a great run early on because I happened to sign up for Kindle Unlimited. No, I should say KDP Select, which is, authors know it as that, where you could offer your book for free for 4 days or 5 days a month or something. And I did that the day before Christmas in 2011. Oh. And it was the craziest Christmas for Kindles. People were just catching on to ebooks and ebook readers. And in 1 week, I made $6,000. And I thought, wow, I'm just going to be rich. That's still my best week ever. But still, it was very exciting at the time. And so that book got a pretty exciting launch because they, back in the day, even though you were giving away a book for free, they being Kindle, hadn't yet, Amazon had not figured everything out, and they used to pay you for free books. Oh. So you'd give the book to the customer for free and they'd pay you. And I'm like, okay, I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
Am I right? No, maybe they didn't pay you, but they put it on the lists as selling as opposed to being free. And so you could go way high up in the list. So I lied. I didn't make any money from that part. But then when it went back to being paid, I did. All right. So that's enough about my early career. But running, I'm so proud of that book. It's close to my heart. And I had great fun writing it.
Yeah.
Interesting question about, women in politics. And it's still a question. I was in a hurry to finally get it out there because I thought, oh, a woman's going to be a president any day now. And we're still waiting. So
I know. I'm hoping that readers are going to look for that because it's one of my favorite books that I've read by you.
Oh, thank you.
And by the way, the whole purpose of this is to spotlight authors. I never got done bragging about my friends and people that I read and really love. And so that's what this is about. Mostly our listeners are readers. And so they're not really interested in the art of writing, although it is interesting to them how we get where we're going. I've had some very interesting questions, really. But the biggest question I get is, can you have this person on? I want to know what he or she looks like or sounds like or what their personality is like. And I'll ask.
Yeah,
See
well,
where it goes.
you've jumped in with both feet, right? How old is this podcast now? Like a week, 2 weeks?
2 weeks or less, a month. I don't know. Maybe my book launch was on June 1st, and it feels like it's been 3 years. So I don't know.
And how many guests have you had? You've been racking up the numbers.
Oh gosh, I think I don't know. I don't even want to say. Probably by the end of this month, I'll have at least 30.
Wow.
So I have a lot of backlog. The holdup is my husband, and God bless him. He gets up in the morning and starts editing, and he edits all day. He does clips and everything, and he's also doing work for me too. Somebody will say, "Oh, can you put out a press release or something?" And I ask, "Oh gosh, this is the evening. This was horrible." We've switched roles. I used to be the housewife.
Right.
Now he's doing all the cooking, and he brought dinner to me because I was working in my office, and then I yelled at him from the thing. I said, "I have two more interviews on Friday. Can you put them on the calendar?" And he says, "Yes, dear."
Can you feed me? Yeah. Well, isn't that wonderful? That's a tribute to your marriage and your trust in each other, that there's no lessening of somebody's power.
No.
It's this sharing. My husband does all the cooking too. I'm so lucky.
Does he? Yeah.
I'm spoiled. Yeah, he made something nice tonight. And yes, I mean, people ask if we're retired, and I'm like, no, we're very busy because we also sing.
That was my next question. And everything from jazz to opera.
Yes. Not as much opera these days, but and the pandemic put a stop to a lot of things for a lot of time, but we're getting back into it now. We just a couple of weeks ago, we sang at we used to sing in this opera group for like 11 or 12 years. That was a summertime thing. And we were often the MCs as well. So that was a fun part of it. And this group probably did maybe 6 or 8 programs per summer. And then, of course, as I said, the pandemic we couldn't do it for a while. And a lot of it was at nursing homes because that was, a joyful thing to bring them.
Yeah.
And they were being very careful, justifiably so, for a long time about letting anybody in. So we used to go to these places, and so we were in the group since, I'm going to say, 2008. And I was younger then. I don't know about you, but I go to these places and I think, oh, these old people, they're so cute. Well, so now we just sang, as I said, 3 weeks ago at another assisted living place nearby. And one of the members of the opera group lives there now. Oh. So it's not like in the dim, distant future anymore. The cute old people, it's like, oh, it's getting closer. We're not there yet, though. We still live independently right now. But that was so much fun to get a chance to sing with him and of course with my husband Richard, and we're trying to do more of that because it not only brings us a lot of joy and it does help pay the rent, but the voice is like anything else, it gets older, and so we want to do it while we can. And we also sing at various churches and stuff, so it's a nice sideline. Sometimes we're in local cabarets or musical plays. So, and we both do it. People think we're so lucky, and we are, of course, in terms of having found each other and being married, because we have so much in common. But it's not just that. But it is wonderful to be able to sing with somebody you love.
Yeah, you guys, and you have a beautiful voice. And
I
haven't heard your husband. I've heard some of your singing though. But you guys you were moving or something, and you were singing about giving away the ties.
Yes, we did it to the tune of Dona Nobis Pacem. We were
great.
I stumbled across that recently. We were like punch drunk. We were so tired. When we sold the house and we sold everything, or we put some things in storage, but this was in 2017. We traveled around the world, and thank goodness we did, because then the world closed down for a while. I'm so glad we did that. We didn't obviously. We reached, let's see how many countries. I don't know how many countries, 12 or 15 countries, but we circumnavigated the globe. And so we were getting rid of everything we could, and what we couldn't get rid of, we put in storage, gave away, whatever. And this was one day when we were looking at all of Richard's old ties, some of which probably went back 20
Yeah.
years plus, and we decided to donate them. So we started saying, donate all the ties for the people, etc. And we did it in harmony. So it's fun. I'll have to send you that clip. You can insert it.
It's just a wonderful clip. I don't even know. It came up. I must have shared it or something because it came up on my memories one day.
Okay.
And I thought, this isn't even mine, but I'm glad it came up because it was really funny. I really
it's I mean, we're a sweaty mess. And we're like, we don't even know what we're doing. Here's another tie, honey. Who should we give this one to? Yeah. But we got out of there, and we're just now thinking about, we've done little trips recently because we're in Connecticut, and we in the last 3 years we've done Martha's Vineyard a couple of times and the coast of Maine. But we were just about to sign up for a cruise, and we thought, we're not sure we're going to, but so we started looking back at the old pictures and clips and records from that 2017 trip, which, by the way, allowed me to meet, I had met him several times before, but I connected with Hugh in New Zealand when he was going around the world in his boat, and we were going by plane, and that was where our paths crossed. And I met David Adams from Australia. I didn't know Jack Lyster yet, or I might have tried to see him. Who else did I see? Oh, JC Andrzejewski was in.
Now I'm envious because I love her work.
She was abroad. Yeah, she's been in. Is she in the? She's not in any of these Beyond the Stars books that I held up.
She's in one though, because I'm sure that I read it.
She is. Yeah. But I'm not seeing it. So I don't know which one it was. After you've done so many, it's hard to keep track.
I know.
And sometimes I use the same people because they're so, so reliable and great stories. Like G.S. Jensen, she has a series, and a huge universe. She does little short stories connected to it. So, so it was a great time. We met lots of interesting people. Who did I meet? Another Eamon Ambrose. I met in Ireland. Yeah, we stopped at his house. He fed us. He drove us to the next bus stop. He was wonderful. It's the best thing. I recommend it. Do a trip around the world and see all your writer friends.
Oh, that's great. I haven't done a trip around the world, but I've been doing trips around the country. And it's really funny because I was in New Hampshire, and a couple of author friends contacted me and said, hey, listen, I'm in Massachusetts. And one of them said, hey, I'm in New Hampshire, but like way north of you. And there was this pressure to meet them because I was there, but I'm going to meet them next time because my granddaughter had just been born. And it's a little tacky to run out on your daughter and say, here's a baby here. Oh, I'll be back. Yeah. I've got authors to see. Bye.
Well, if you get up to New England, meet me too. Because I
will. Absolutely. I didn't know you were in Connecticut. All right.
Yeah. I kind of keep it cagey for all my fans.
Oh, okay.
New England,
you don't want them finding you and sneaking.
No one should know where this famous author lives.
No. Do you have any?
Beat down my door.
Do you have any little stories from the road that you can tell us?
Let's see. Oh, well, yes. Many stories, but let's see. Famously, we were in Italy, and we had a certain time that we had to be at the airport, I think it was, I don't know exactly what it was, but it was somewhere in Italy, and we had to get somewhere, and there was a particular train. So we go to the train station, and fortunately I don't speak Italian, but we both sing, and we sing opera. So we speak French and German, pretty good for an American. So we can kind of figure out Italian. Anyway, the signs, were very helpful. So we went to get our ticket, and there were people in line for the ticket. It was a machine, and it took a long time. And the train, we're within minutes of the train, and finally got up there. And I was watching all of the people in line, the 5 or 6 people in line ahead of me, because I knew I had to be fast. So I'm watching all those buttons. Okay, this is what you do for the biglietto, or whatever they're calling the ticket. And that may not be right. I might be mixing it up with French, but and where you put the money and whatever. And so Richard took the suitcases, and because we had to go down a stairway, and then go down the corridor to the train. This is turning into a long story. I'll try
It's okay.
to
We got time.
and then go up another stairway to get to the train. And I'm trying to remember how it worked. Anyway, so he took the suitcases ahead of time, and I'm at this thing, and I'm thinking, okay, what's going to happen? I have to catch him. You know, he had the passports too. You know, and I'm in this country, so I got the ticket, and I ran down the stairs. I was a little younger then, 5 years younger. And I see him at the end of the corridor waiting by the elevator because he needs the elevator for these 2 pretty heavy suitcases that were taking us around the world. And I shouted to him, "Get on the elevator. Don't wait for me." So he gets on the elevator and he goes up, and I run up the stairs, and you know, fire licking at my heels because I'm like, okay. And the train is there, and he had put the suitcases on, and he's standing there in the door leaning out for me like a scene from a movie. And it didn't start moving. I didn't do that where you run and then you hit one of the posts. But I really just barely got on, and my heart was in my mouth because he had everything. He had all the clothes, and he had the passports and all my ID and everything. All I had was 20 lira or whatever. Oh, it's not lira anymore. Of course, it's euros. That shows you how old I am, that I've been in Europe before. But I made it. And we made it. And then we got to, this is another Italy story. We got to this cool thing that we were doing. It was an Airbnb offering. We did a lot of Airbnb as we traveled. It was a better deal then. It's a little trickier now, but they were doing opera in the country, they called it, or opera in the kitchen. And so you go out to this beautiful country farm, and you help pick the herbs, and you actually make your tortellini, and then you make the dessert, which is some kind of a chocolate cookie thing, and then you eat it. And in the middle of it, there's singing. There was an opera singer who sang some songs, and I had written to them, and I said, "We're singers. Can we sing a song too?" So we sang "Don't You Know It, Dona Nobis Pacem." I think that's what we sang. No, or was it? No, it was Panis Angelicus, which is bread of angels. But what was my story about? So we had this wonderful evening, met some people, talked, went around the farm, had lots of vino, had the dessert, went back to the train station, and we walked downstairs, this much smaller train station, the last train that would get you back into Firenze, to Florence at night. And I looked across, and I saw 3 other people from our small group. And I said, "Look at them, Richard, they're on the wrong side." And then we're like, oh no. You can tell what the punchline is. So there we go. And of course, you can't go across the tracks. So you go up the stairs, you race across, you go down the stairs. We made it though. So 2 Italian train stories
where we were getting in. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Oh, I'm one of those people who's always early to everything, and Richard just gets so mad at me. But I fear those kinds of situations. But yeah, we've had a couple of experiences ourselves, and oddly, both of them were in Italy. So must be something about the Italian trains or countryside or something.
It's la dolce vita.
I don't know what it is. Yeah, la dolce vita. That's great.
Abbondanza. So your husband is also Richard.
Yes, I never thought about that. He doesn't go by Richard. His name is Rick. So okay. R-I-C. But I didn't think about that. Yeah. So okay, so Hugh Howey has us all thinking about TVs and movies. Okay, so if a producer called and asked you to do one of your stories, which one would it be? And a TV or movie, and which one it would be, and why?
Oh, what a great question. Maybe you should have prepped me for this one.
Uh-oh.
Wow.
Well, I can think of several.
Well, thank you. I mean, I love Karma of the Silo. That might be complicated because, Silo on Apple. And running, I love too, but then I have some short stories that are great. I think it would depend upon the medium, movie versus, because I remember having gone through, watching this with Hugh's experience with Wool/Silo.
Yeah.
When he was going to have a movie with Ridley Scott, we thought this is going to be great. And I think The Martian came out sort of shortly after that, or some other things. So it was like, okay, is there too much sci-fi stuff? And then that didn't happen. And he said, he did tell his, band of followers that he would rather have it be a TV show because he could expand it. And I thought, well, yeah, but it's such second prize, it's not as good production values, but everything has changed. The whole environment changed. And he is just tremendously lucky that Apple TV Plus, which didn't even exist when he was, when he first wrote the book and when it was first optioned for the movies, is a tremendous vehicle for this. I mean, they've done, the quality of the production is amazing, and the actors that he got. I mean, he has Rebecca Ferguson, who's the big star in the big female star in Mission Impossible. It's funny because there was just an interview with her. Here I am talking away. I thought we wouldn't fill our time, but I'm talking a lot, so you'll have plenty
You're
of
good. We're
plenty
fine.
of words from me. So there was an interview of Rebecca Ferguson. It was maybe 5 or 6 days ago, where it's the Mission Impossible, the latest one, whichever the number is, premiere in London. And right beside her is, I was going to say Tom Hanks, but no, Hanks. I mean Tom Cruise, Tom Cruise, of course. And people are, screaming and yelling and cheering for him. And she has to wait till it all dies down. And the guy who's interviewing her wants to know about Silo. And she's, because that's what everybody's excited about. But it's ironic that she's standing beside Tom Cruise talking about a huge movie, and Silo is just as interesting to a lot of as that. So it's very prestigious these days. And I couldn't be more thrilled. The finale of the first season of Silo is just about to be released. Maybe by the time people see this, it will be. And then we have to wait all summer, or more than summer, because they're just filming the second season now. So I'm telling people, another plug, read Karma at the Asylum in the meantime. Although there's some spoilers that will, but I think you'll know generally. Well, maybe you shouldn't. Wait till you read Shift in the Hugh's second book. Read Shift and then read this.
Yeah, I know that everybody is picking up his books again, and that's great. The series it's been pretty spot on. They've got a couple of things in there that I have not seen from the book, or I thought, I don't remember that, and then looked it up and said, oh no, that wasn't in the book. But that's okay. I mean, it's not always going to be the same. But I felt the same way at first. I thought, oh, it was going to be a movie, and now it's a TV series. But now, having watched it, I have to tell you, with the first series, the first episode, I looked at it and I said, well, somebody plucked that scene right out of my brain. That's it right there. So
it's really so tremendous. And I'm sure if you've been following Hugh's description of it, he was the one that was sort of egging them on in the writer's room to expand it and do different things. And they're like, no, let's kind of stick with the framework of the book. Let's not go too crazy here. So, I mean, I have not read his books, which of course I read in great detail and, many times over back in the day when I first wrote my book, the Karma book, which is now almost 10 years ago. I knew it, and now I have forgotten some of it. I know the broad outlines. So it's a big surprise to me. And I'm going to go back and reread his books in the summer after the season is over.
That's how I plan to spend my frustrating time waiting for the next season, is rereading the originals. So yeah. And to answer my own question, if I was to pick one, I would pick Running for a movie. I think that would be an outstanding movie and very timely. And I would pick Karma of the Silo to follow up, Hugh. So
all right, I'll buy that. Sure. Do you have the checkbook to
cover that? For sure. If you can cash it, we'll split it.
Yes, sounds good.
So, well, is there a question I have not answered that you wish that I had?
I think you mean, is there a question you have not asked that I wish?
Yes, I'm sorry.
But it was good. It was good. I liked it. I thought, okay, we're turning the tables here. I think you've given me ample opportunity to talk about myself, and I appreciate it so much. I mean, and I'm flattered to know that you've read my books. That's really, really very wonderful of you. So I look forward to, and as I said, I've been watching some of your new this whole podcast as you've released them, and I will continue to do so. So just that, thank you so much, and it's been great, and I look forward to seeing how I look on camera. Here now I'm fluffing my hair.
It's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much. And to listeners, as always, I will post links below where you can find Patrice's books, her boutique, and also stay up to date on her latest adventures. So
thank you so much.
Thank you.